Hello, welcome. This is Teresa with Teresa Marie Art and Design. I'm going to be sharing a few tips on silk painting. So I wanted to show you, I have a 36-inch scarf. I have two of them. I've already pre-dyed them. I'll stand back to show you the size. So these I got from the Dharma Trading Company. You can also get them if you live locally. I've gotten them from the Tacoma Art and Craftsman Supply in Tacoma, Washington. So these are 36 inches square. When I dye, I put them in a Ziploc baggie. So like this one, for instance, is a Ziploc. And I put the dyes in there, some very warm water. You can pre-soak them in a bath with warm water. You could even put some rock salt, like Morton's rock salt in there. And then I take dyes such as any of these kind of, like the jacquard silk colors, like these. And you can get these from the Dharma Trading Company. You look online. You can also order a catalog from them. And again, I've been getting these from the Tacoma Arts and Crafts Supplies as well. You can get them from there too. So you put it in the Ziploc baggie, you move it around like this, and it's really important to let it sit in the sunshine, to let it heat set, or you could, and you want to let it sit for about 24 hours. When it's a cooler weather, you could just go ahead and let it sit. You might want to let it sit a little bit longer and then take it out, let it line dry, ideally in the sun. So I wanted to show you what I do. I want to go ahead and continue painting on it, and you want to stretch it. So what I've done is I take stretcher bars. So I will demonstrate with this. So these are the normal stretcher bars that you would use when you want to stretch a canvas. So this particular silk scarf, I have another one that I've already prepared for this video, and it is 36 inches square. This is made of a very lightweight balsa wood, and it's really easy to put together. If you look here and how, so I'll just go like this. So look at that there, and they fit right inside like a puzzle. And you just put it together like this. See that corner? And then put the other corner together. Like that. And then I have this corner. And you can get these at any art store, any arts and crafts store. You can also order them online. So there, and that is a stretcher bar that you would normally stretch canvas on, but I like to stretch silk on it. And then I have just my like a push pin, and I'll show you the finished one that I did here. But I take the corners so I'll line up like this, and then I just take a push pin like this and I just push it in. So it's pretty easy to do like this. And then I'm always stretching, alternating So I'll show you on this one here that I did earlier. What I did here, so if you could see right here, I started in the four corners, and then what I did is I went directly across here, and then I went directly across here. And so when you're stretching, you want to always be directly across when you stretch, because you don't want your silk to be off center or cockeyed. It's a lot like when you change a tire and you want to tighten the bolts, but you don't want to tighten too tight, and you always want to go across. And it's also another concept I learned in custom picture framing. When you're putting together a frame or a mat or glass and you're fitting it together, you're trying to press and tighten, but you're always going directly across. And then as you keep putting more of the push pins in there, then you can tighten it a little more as you go. So the importance is, it's a lot like needlepoint. When you put fabric in a needlepoint circle, you want to have it tight, because, for instance, when you're doing the needlepoint, you don't want it too loose. With the same concept with silk painting, you want the silk fabric to be tight so that when you're painting, then it is tight enough and it's a flat surface. Now, another thing that's important, I wanted to show you. So with silk painting, when you're using your dye, and I want to show you this as an example. This is a mistake, and it's always important to learn from our mistakes. I was thinking, oh, I'll do this paint and I'll put, like, I use a GAC fabric painting medium when I use my regular paint. So sometimes I use calligraphy paint, or I'll use a liquid acrylic paint, like golden acrylic liquid paint. And I was thinking, well, if I use the GAC, it won't bleed as much. But actually it did bleed. So this is what it looks like with the bleeding. But that's no problem, because I can just go over that and fix that with something else. So this is a smaller silk that I did, and it's very long. And I did the same thing. I just put all these dyes in. I crunched it up. It's a little bit like tie-dye. Put it in a Ziploc baggie, put some rock salt and the dye, and just let it dry, and then let it line dry in the sun. So I'm going to be working on that later. I wanted to show you something that I did here. And because it didn't bleed as much, so when you're working with paints and art supplies, it's always important to learn the rules and learn from your mistakes. So I showed you that other one. I made a mistake, and the dye and the ink, it bled. But for some reason, and I think this is more more metallic, but when I take my metallic calligraphy inks and then I mix it with the GAC 900 fabric painting medium, and I took a square paintbrush with my calligraphy Dr. Martin's. It's iridescent. It's 11R copper plate gold, or I might have used the real gold. And this did not bleed. So it's very light and subtle, but it didn't bleed. So that was just something that I learned. So you can always learn from your mistakes, and you could intermix painting mediums. And that's one of the things that I learn about, because I paint and I do artwork in so many different particular mediums. I'm not only an oil painter or a watercolor painter or an acrylic painter or a pencil artist or a silk painting artist or a calligrapher. I'm actually all of those things. And I make mistakes and I learn from my mistakes, and then I create a mixed media process. So one of the things, like with stretching for silk painting, some silk painters, they use a heavy stretcher bar for their silk painting, and it's a heavier wood because they don't want it to warp. But this is made of balsa wood, and this won't warp. It's very lightweight, and it just comes apart very easily. And then you could just use it. So one of the ways I like to take it apart is I just press on a corner, and I'll show you that here. Let's see that. I'm just going to press on a corner like this. And see, that comes apart really easy. And then we can just store that and put it away and use it to stretch a canvas. I can assemble it again. I can use it to make a stretcher bar for silk. Another thing that is important when you don't want your dyes to bleed, you can do something where it's a product by Jacquard, and it's called No Flow right here. And then you put it in something like this. I had another one, I'm not sure where I put it, but it has a metal tip. But this one has the Jacquard in it. And then you can make a design on there and let it sit and let it dry. And then the paint, the dye won't bleed. I wanted to show you an example of using that No Flow. And it's right here. I showed it yesterday on my video. But what I did here, I used that No Flow right here. And I wrote the word persist. So the dye, once I dyed this and I stretched it, it didn't go where I put that No Flow. And then another thing, I took a big paintbrush right here and I dipped it in the No Flow right here to create that flow of water. And then I used something like this right here. And sometimes you can get them where they have a metal tip. And I used it to create this design right here as well. And then you see all these little dots right here. Once I put the dye on there and it was wet, I put really heavy rock salt and it created this resist right here. And then the fish, what I did here is I took acrylic paint and it was more of the acrylic calligraphy dye. And then I used that golden fabric painting medium and it made this soft. And that's one of the things you don't want to have crunchiness to your silk paintings. You want to have that softness. Now here, what I did is I wrote the word in calligraphy. I wrote the word persist here with the calligraphy ink. And then I used that golden GAC fabric painting medium. So I wrote it in here and I used a square paintbrush right here. So this is very long. What I've done is I put some bamboo right here and then tied it with ribbon. And then I hand stitched a little overlap, like a little rod pocket on the back. And then to give it a little bit of weight, I got another bamboo right here And I have the ribbon on the edge so that the rod pocket won't, and the bamboo won't go through the rod pocket. And that gives it a little bit of weight so that it'll have a little more strength. So I wanted to show you another thing. This is something that's also silk. It's a black silk. And then I did the same thing here. It's not dyed, but I used paint. And I know that it's really only for calligraphy, but it works. And then I mix it again with this golden GAC 900. And this is Dale or Rowney FW. It's a calligraphy ink and it's acrylic.
Hey.
Hi, David.
Ooh, look at that.
And this is David Muller behind me. This is his shop. So this is what I did here. And then I paint with that. And then once I let it dry, then I use this, and it's called Synthra. I can't ever pronounce it right. Synthropol LF. And this helps to set the dye. And I let it line dry either outside, and it's like a soap. And I let it either line dry or I put it on a little drying rack in my bathtub. So those are just some things that I like to do when I'm doing silk painting. So thank you very much and look forward to hearing from you soon.